Rotary experience is most significant. He has served as a founder and charter president of 3 active Rotary clubs, 1 in the US and 2 in India. He's been a Rotarian since 2002, a former Rotary Youth Exchange student, and after donating his kidney to his brother 8 years ago, embarked on a mission to ensure no one dies waiting for an organ. With the goal to reach 1 million potential donors around the world, driving his message of organ donation and love. So far, he's reached over 250,000 people by way of over 800 lectures. He has driven across 57 countries in the past 8 years and is currently on a mission to unite Rotary for organ donation. He was flagged off by past Rotary International President Shekhar Mehta and Rotary International President-elect Gordon McNally in Houston, and is currently driving to the next convention in Melbourne, and of course he's currently in Bangalore right now. A gold medal winner for India. He was a gold medal winner for India in the 2019 Games, the World Transplant Games. From Houston, he drove to Alaska and then to Argentina, spanning 17 countries in 8 months, and his car is currently headed to Australia by ship in this leg. As he is currently the founder and charter president of the world's first Rotary Club of Organ Donations, we are really beyond thrilled to have him here tonight. He travels with his wife, Dipali. They have 2 children, Kavya, 24, and Surya, 22. Anil, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I should make sure I send a shorter one because it eats into my talking time.
No, we have all the time you need.
So, yeah, it would have been lovely to have been amongst you in person as I actually drove past you guys. But I understand your scheduling was such that wasn't possible, but I completely forgotten about this this time with you schedule until a few days ago when I looked at the calendar. I'm like, Rotary Talk. What's that?
We did schedule this back, I think, in August of last year.
Yeah, that's why. So it's been so long. But hey, we're here, that shows that time flies, and this is just adequate proof that it did. My wanting to speak to clubs has a singular objective. Is to drive home the point that polio is getting too lonely. It needs company. And what would that be? What could that be? And organ donation seems to be the next viable health goal that Rotary can, sink its teeth into. In fact, just today I was delivering some statistics, and the most significant of them being that polio was at its peak, had affected 350,000 people. Before, when I say at its peak, when Rotary took on the project in the early 80s. And luckily, science has brought a great gift to polio in the form of a vaccine. I think Edward Jenner was a guy who got that vaccine going. And now there's 6 cases as early as last year. But you take kidney donation, not kidney donation, but kidney disease for that matter. Now, organ donation, has all kinds of organs involved, where 80% of transplants are kidneys. So let's look at CKD. About 10% of the world's population is affected by it. That puts the number to about 800 million, give or take. It is CKD is perhaps the #1 killer disease that is non-communicable. Whoa. That's non-communicable. In some countries, it's the #1 killer. Oh, there's somebody. My ears are popping with the sound there. Can you all put it on mute just so the sounds? This is a sensitive microphone, so unfortunately, it's right in my ear. Okay, so with the statistics stacked against kidney disease, does kidney disease have a solution like a vaccine? Where what you can just say, all right, let's start administering it. So 40 years later, we can say that we ended it, like polio. No. There's no scientific vaccine for that, but there is a human vaccine that exists. And that human vaccine exists in every one of us. And if used, we can safely say in about 10 or 15 years that no one died waiting for an organ this year. And what is that vaccine? I call it love. All of us have that thing in us, expressing love for a fellow man, woman, child. And yet we don't. Every individual comes together with this vaccine, we can do it together. But the fact that it doesn't happen is the reason why I think Rotary is in its best form, the best group to tackle this problem, as we did with polio. It seems like a simple solution. Oh yeah, heck, yeah, we're a Rotary Club and we can take on organ donation and ensure that no one died in our town waiting for an organ this year. The problem is we are so, I wouldn't say uneducated, but less educated about this, that the less we know about it, the more we try and not deal with it. It's easy to feed hungry kids. It's easy to educate the uneducated because it's in your face, right? It's right there, it's tangible. You get the results right in the same Rotary president's year and check that I did this project. It's really easy. Or distributing, school bags for back to school. Not saying that it's not important. Those things are not. But when it comes to saving an entire nation's health, in the long run, it takes vision, it takes commitment, and it takes a higher calling where we can accomplish anything as long as we don't care who gets the credit. We may not see this problem end in our presidential year of the club, but we sure can see it end in this lifetime of us being on this planet. And that's where I'm trying to impress on as many clubs to start small, do it in just your own communities. Don't worry about the world, just ensure that no one dies waiting for an organ in your community. And how can you do that? What are the things you can do? Small things that have big impacts. I mean, today I can proudly say, because it's fresh off the press, in today's newspaper in India, well, not one, but pretty much across the board, it's great news. India has decided that it's going to have the policy of one country, one organ transplant law. Because like the US, we've got 30 states. And each state has its own way of dealing with organ donation because health is a state subject. So the central government cannot do much. But in a sweeping collaboration with all the states, they've decided to do this. But how did they come up with this? What epiphany did they have that today they woke up and said, hey, let's do this? There were 3 Rotarians who made this change or who forced this change. 3 Rotarians. If 3 Rotarians, by their action, can change the destiny of 1.3 billion people of India, can you imagine what 1.2 million Rotarians can do for the world? We play right into the hands of Gordon's new theme, creating hope in the world. There are millions out there who need that hope, without which they are going to die. And that hope is the love that lies within us to tell that dying world that someone up there still exists and looking out for them. By the way, I was one of those 3 Rotarians. What I did was we call it a public interest litigation over here, just like a class action suit over there. So we did a public interest litigation at the Supreme Court of India, praying for the abolishment of certain rules and regulations that came in the way of somebody registering to get on the transplant waiting list. And the Supreme Court judge didn't take half an hour to say yes, and directed the central government to end in this action. You could do the same thing in your town. Work with your mayor. Get your mayor to perhaps proclaim an organ donation week in your town. And use that week to tell the stories of organ donors in your own town. Give them a hero's welcome, the living donors, families of the deceased donors, because they had the courage to say yes. And nothing moves an entire nation than to have role models. So make role models out of these people. Make them heroes. We're used to, as Americans, we're used to heroes. Start a new breed of them. Use this week to use the media as your partners to tell the stories of these people, to tell the stories or to state facts, bust myths. I mean, just a simple thing. And if I had to look around the room in person and I asked the question, how many of you have signed up to be an organ donor on your driver's license? And maybe half of you will raise your hands. But if I did ask today, look around you and tell me how many of those hands went up. I'm assuming there's about 10 or 15 in the room today, right? In this room. But how many of you who raised your hands know what happens after you've signed up?
There were 12.
Sorry, there was lots of feedback. I didn't quite hear that. I heard the 12. The 12 hands went up.
Unmute. Yeah, I think you're.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I think I counted 11 or 12 here, and almost everyone, or maybe everyone, raised their hand.
I think we're all donors here.
Yeah.
Great, great. So I asked the next question. How many of you know what happens after this? Is it magic? Is it automatically going to happen?
You get put on a donor list and be tested? On the driver's license.
We
Now,
don't know.
No, you don't. And that's pretty much the answer I get across the board. I've driven around America 3 times, and I've spoken to over 150 clubs during that time. And chances are nobody knows. They assume the system will take over. They assume that somebody up there is going to know when you die. And before they know it, you'll have somebody knocking on your doors. Hey, I'm going to come and take your organs. No, it doesn't work like that.
That's in my will.
Right.
Well, that's not completely true. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Let me give you just kind of a quick overview. I am 87 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I had polio as a kid. I was operated on for cancer of the chest, esophageal cancer. That was 15 years ago. There's no trace of it today.
God bless you.
Yeah, I have been blessed many, many, many times.
I can see that.
I have had my entire body donated with the card since I was 16 years old. I carry the card. My doctors, plural, all know that I am a registered donor. My wife knows that before she calls the funeral director, or after she calls the funeral director, she should know, he knows that I am a donor. I could go on, and this is not braggadocio at all. It's saying that you don't just stop by signing a card some 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. That my
exactly.
my wife knows that she knows that this is high priority. Now, I have a question that I don't know, and I was delighted to hear that you were our speaker today, because even though I've been pretty proactive, the card sits in my wallet. I would hope that when I die, depending on the circumstances of my death, that somebody from the police department or the fire department or somebody will ask my wife or search my wallet to find out, is he one? I am. But what about the problem? But I realize this now because I am 87, in darn good health. I've had all sorts of problems. Right now, I'm just doing fine, but I'm gonna die someday. Today, next week, 10 years from now, I don't know. But when that happens, somebody else has to take the priority and say, he is a organ donor. He's got the card, his family knows this. Because if I die without saying this to anybody else, nobody will know. That's my story. So I think that's imperative. Oh, but my question was going to be, at my age and with a history of some serious diseases in my life, all of which are under control, am I still eligible? Now, I need to take the ball and check with my doctors and say, what is the ruling in South Carolina? What prohibits me from donating portions of my body, and what illnesses that I've had, are there still parts of my body that I can donate? I took too long, I'm sorry, but I think that's part of my answer to your question.
Well, I didn't really ask the question yet, but you did give me a very comprehensive response, which helps me in my response to you. There was a lot of speculation in everything that you said. Not certainty. There was speculation that this could happen, that would happen. My family knows. They're told that this is what's priority. Well, that's great. You have learned from the wisdom of your life, and you are sure of what you want, and you've informed your family of this. But 80 to 90% that signed up on their cards do not think it's necessary to inform their family. Just a small thing that you did is not common sense. If everybody did it, that would be a great start. So there is your first awareness campaign. that you could use the media for and say, talk to your family, let them know. Now, a driver's license, typically in America, and I speak with a lot of authority because like you, I'm American. I just happen to live in India. I'm quite familiar with how things work there, right? The driver's license typically is looked at in a car crash. But if somebody dies in the hospital or somebody dies at home, that's not the first document people ask for. And that's the pretty much a universal document that captures a person's intent because it's easiest, because in that society, most people have a driver's license, even for the sake of having an ID, a state ID. So it's the easiest document to capture the intent of the person, but it's not automatic that that document is seen regardless of the cause of death. Now, a lot of people think that I have it in my DNR and I have it in my will. See, the DNR is not the same thing. The will is certainly not the best place to put this in because it's seen much after your body is probably starting to decompose by then, because you have a window of 24 hours to retrieve any organ that's viable. To answer your question, sir, now because you were afflicted with cancer, chances are most of your organs are going to be unviable, except for perhaps your cornea. But
corneas, yeah.
now your cornea is a magic tissue. You've got two eyes, and each eyes have a cornea that have a few layers. So two people get to see with each of your eye. So that's 4 people gain vision just because you donated your cornea. And that's just the smallest thing you can donate once you pass on. You can donate your heart valves, you can donate your skin, your bones, your inner eardrum, your kneecaps, your small intestine. I give you an example of a coconut tree. I know in South Carolina, you may not have that many coconut trees, or maybe you do because the weather is quite suitable. But a coconut tree is a classic example of how a body of a human could be put to good use. Every bit of that coconut tree is used. The coconut, the jute comes from there. The leaves are used. The ribs of the leaves are used to create brooms. Why is it okay for a tree to give up every part of its body in service of mankind, but man doesn't want to do it for mankind? It's the same thing. You think it's automatic. You think humanity should be inbuilt. But fear is the biggest enemy of love. And fear comes from an unanswered question, which the Rotary clubs have the ability and the power to drive away, because information is a floodlight that makes a dark alley look safe. And you have the power of disseminating that information. If you first educate yourselves on the nuances of organ donation, then you're able to do it for your community. And which is why I've set out to unite Rotary for organ donation and kickstart that process. I know I can't possibly do it single-handedly. There's over 37,000 clubs around the world, and I've probably only met 500 of them. But at least if the 500 start working towards their communities not losing anyone to the lack of an organ, then they become role models for the other clubs and say, hey, they can do it, I can do it. Today, after my talk here at a president-elect training seminar, one person ran out, and it's, by the way, it's a Rotary club with 100% transgender membership.
Wow.
Right? And they came out and asked me, hey, every single one of our members is open to becoming an organ donor, and we are perhaps the first 100% organ donor club, which is far more prestigious than 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club. Right, we've got to set new benchmarks. You've got to set new benchmarks and walk our talk. Now, 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club is just, I mean, I think we've outlived all of these material things. These medals of honor are superficial. Would you not rather have the Medal of Honor saying that you're a 100% organ donor club? That shows you have heart. That shows your other clubs to follow suit. So that's equally part of a project that you can do. Maybe you could be a 100% donor district. But there is always that one or two that'll stand up and say, my religion forbids me to be an organ donor. That's where you come in again. You've got to have that knowledge to know that there's not a single religion except Jehovah's Witness that prohibits you from being an organ donor.
Anil, question.
Sir.
I love the points that you're making about what happens to your organs after you leave this life. I'd like to know, because it's apparent that there's no national registry for organ donation. At least that's what it sounds like here in the United States.
There is one. There is one.
Okay, so can you tell us how we go about getting people listed on that? And is that a place that hospitals routinely check when people pass away?
They don't. So this is why I've told a lot of clubs in the US. In fact, there's one, two clubs, if I remember. There may be more, but the ones I do remember is El Campo in Texas and Edina in Minneapolis. Both of them had mayors that were Rotarians in the club I spoke at. Okay, and that's the person you need to talk to in your town, because the EMS is the first point of contact when it's not a death in the hospital. If it's a home death or an accidental death, the EMS is called, right? 911. Ambulance is sent out, the EMTs come. The EMTs come and they typically try and take documentation to identify the person. But not everywhere is the driver's license asked as part of identification. All they had to do was pass a protocol or a directive saying, from now on, all of you check the driver's license as well, so you don't have to ask the family, because sometimes the family have vested interest. They may not agree with the decision of that individual, and they will hide the fact that that person was an organ donor. But if the EMT asked for the driver's license, they would know just looking at it.
Are there any countries that do it better than, I mean, is there a country that does it very well so that?
You know, unfortunately, this subject is so superficially known that nobody wants to dig deep in. Every country's in the same boat, which is what makes this problem an apparent problem that we need to solve.
Yes.
Because this is not a medical issue like polio is. This is a social issue, because medicine is waiting there to cure you. There is a cure. There is a solution. But people need to come and get that solution. So it's a social issue. There's many reasons for why they don't. And mostly frivolous, steeped in ignorance, driven by fear, caused by, again, ignorance. So it's a cycle. Who's going to break that cycle? I'm not saying we can solve this problem in a year, but if it took polio 40 years, in fact, you know, unlike the gentleman who spoke up today and said he was, you know, he had polio, he's 87. In today's generation, it is just a thing of the past because of what Rotarians did for 40 years. They can't even identify with polio. They know about it. They can't identify with it because they haven't seen it. And they still raise polio flag. Again, I'm not belittling the thing, but there is a cycle. Polio has come to a cycle where now it's maintenance. The governments have taken over because we work with governments with this. We work with the WHO. It's become systemic. Now a child is born, the drops are given. It's process driven. It took that long, but now people who wave the polio flag are doing so as habit. Because someone said so, because there's a polio fund, let's just donate to the fund, whether it makes a difference or not. It's just a process that's now continuous. No one's thinking about it. In the 80s, it was you and I today. If we took organ donation as a health goal today, we would be what the Rotarians in the 80s were when polio was taken, pioneers. Maybe 10 years from now, it'll be the same with organ donation, where the flag is being raised, but nobody understands it because, oh yeah, no one's dying anyway. It's normal. But it was built on the backs of committed Rotarians. And you and I today have that opportunity to be that committed Rotarian. Because 800 million people are seeking our help, looking for hope. Looking for that vaccine we call love.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Anil?
Anybody else? You gave us a lot to think about here.
It would really, Anil, it would be very helpful if, and I don't know if this is on your foundation page, but if you had measures, I know you've gone over some here today about what we can do as a club, but it would be nice if we had something that we could share with other clubs and within our communities about how we can become better at this process.
At the process of taking this on as a project, you mean?
Taking this on as a project and yes, getting people registered and creating awareness around our hospitals, our EMTs, just getting into some kind of a pattern where, as you said, with polio,
see,
it becomes
you just
a
answered
process.
your own question. You answered your own question. See, even if you did that one thing is getting your EMTs around this, you've begun to make impact already, because in the system in America, unlike in India, now there's no EMT that is called here. If somebody dies at home, we can take them straight to the crematorium from here. But the law in the US says that you have to go to a funeral home. There's a process. You can track. At the last frontier is the funeral home. If the funeral home also finds out that you have a driver's license that says you're an organ donor, they are connected with the OPOs, the organ procurement organizations. So their system exists. You just need to fill the gaps. So find out what it is in your town. It's a small town. Speak to your mayor, speak to your head of EMT or fire or police or all of them. You'll get that answer quickly, and then you'll know what to do at the very basic. You don't need a document from me. You got it. You have it with you. Awareness is as simple. Awareness is about getting the facts. What can you donate? At what point can you donate? You know, how old do you need to be to donate? All this is available even with your sharing networks. I think there is a sharing network over there that has all of this. Now, recently in New Jersey, oh, by the way, historically, the African-American communities and the Asian communities, South Asian communities are least susceptible to donating organs, historically. I know South Carolina has a lot of African-American communities.
But we're actually in North Carolina. We're in the good Carolina.
In North Carolina, you're in the good Carolina. Okay, even there.
It's just
Even
John
there.
who's in South Carolina.
I'm in South Carolina.
Okay. So in North Carolina, okay, I did stop over in, isn't Chandran your district governor? Chandran?
Cam is, yes.
Yeah.
Cam is our current district governor. I'm actually our district governor nominee.
Oh, great. So listen,
Yeah.
you can do something wonderful in your term.
You're giving me some ideas.
Yes, definitely.
there is this guy who's a current district governor in the Washington D.C. the Maryland area. His name is Sean McAllister.
Yeah, I know Sean.
You know Sean's.
Yes.
So Sean has a committee in his district called the Organ Donation Committee, of which I have the honor of being a board member, by the way. He nominated me as part of his board. And I try and direct, there is a young road tractor who chairs the committee and is doing a phenomenal job out there. You can make it a district-wide initiative in your term and make it a standing committee that sees life even after your term.
Wonderful.
And
is that Rotary actor Ahmed?
Alson? Yeah, his first name is Alson, I think. Arslan. A-R-S-L-O-N.
It's someone different. Okay, thank you. You've given me some good information. Thank you.
Right,
I think
you could talk to Sean.
Yes, I will definitely talk to Sean.
Awesome.
Katie, you had a question?
Not a question, comment. You didn't talk very much about live donations. I just wanted to mention or say, have a nephew who knew someone in his church, or didn't know this man, but heard at his church that it was someone who needed a kidney. And he, at 20-something or 30-something, early 30s, donated his kidney, one of his kidneys. And they are friends today and doing well.
Now, here's another project you can do. You can get this person to become the evangelist and do talks, because nothing inspires people from hearing someone who has done it and been there. I mean, you're listening to me because I've been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
I'm a kidney donor. And I can speak to the good health that I still enjoy in spite of my one kidney. I lead a perfectly normal life. People need to see this. People need to identify with this. So that's another project you can do, is get them to go speak to high schools, lay them up to speak to larger groups in your community, college kids maybe senior.
That's a great idea.
But you do have people in your neighborhood that have given it.
Yep.
There's a group called the Kidney Donor Athletes, and I'm sure some of their members are from your neck of the woods. A partner with KDA, partner with NKDO, which is the National Kidney Donor Organization, of which, by the way, the founder of which, Ned Brooks, is a member of my Rotary Club. So we are the Rotary Club of Organ Donation, and we have members from 9 countries now. And Ned Brooks is one of our members from NKDO. Happy to partner with your district as we constantly share ideas, but if you start the committee and get that moving, I think you can start talking to all your clubs from a district level.
Love it. Thank you.
We have recorded this. Is it okay to put it on our YouTube channel?
Oh, no, absolutely. And since you've recorded this, let me also put on record that I'm going to send my Venmo and PayPal details.
Yes, we will put that on there.
It's giftoflifeadventure@gmail.com. And I ask this because you wonder how I've driven 57 countries speaking to over 500 clubs. It's because every club that I spoke to has given me gas money so I could drive more. So currently, just to give you a sense, that I'm just waiting for my ship to arrive in Perth, Australia, so that I can start driving to the convention. So from Alaska to Argentina, you guys helped out, and I still have miles to go. And after Australia, I'm headed back to India with my car and then driving through Pakistan into Africa, because they need a lot of help as well in this regard. So I'll take anything you guys can give me.
Well, that is fantastic. Thank you.
I have a
very much.
501c3 in New Jersey. So if it, I'm happy to work with that. So this way you get to write off whatever you want to write off as direct giving, whatever. It's a 501c3.
Yeah, make sure you send all that information.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Are we good?
Are we good? Get some rest, buddy.
Yeah.
Take care. See you in Melbourne if anyone's coming out there.
Yeah.
I'll see you there. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. right.
Thank you.
Bye now. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, thank you. Okay, Doug, you wanna start with your announcements?
Oh, yeah, you have a few announcements.
Yeah.
That's major. Hang on for 1 second. Let me find them. Just a reminder that we've got the membership summit next Friday at Providence Baptist Church. That's on February 24th. We do have actually 3 people signed up to attend, so I'm grateful for that. Kind of an urgent message for